Rain hit my windshield so hard it felt personal. The wipers squeaked in protest, dragging water side to side like they were tired of fighting. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel with one hand and balanced the pizza box with the other. I told myself this was just another delivery, just another address, just another night of pretending my life was under control. I was just delivering pizza, I thought. I didn't know I was about to destroy the lie I'd lived with for 12 years. The GPS announced the destination in a flat voice. A gated mansion rose out of the darkness ahead of me. Iron gates, stone walls, lights glowing warm behind tall windows. Security stopped me at the entrance and looked me over like I didn't belong in the same world. I waited, heart pounding, rain dripping from my hair. Then the gate slowly opened. That was the moment I saw him. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to StoryVerse Vault. Your home, your safe place, your family. Before we begin, let's take a moment together. Heavenly Father, we come before you with humble hearts. Please cover every woman in this family with divine strength, unbreakable dignity, and deep peace. Give them health in their bodies, calm in their minds, and light in their hearts. These women carry families with patience, love without limits, and pain without complaint. Reward them with protection, joy, and the honor they truly deserve. Let no woman here feel forgotten, weak, or done. Raise them as pillars of love, grace, and quiet power. Amen. My beautiful family, I speak from my heart. Every story I tell, I pour my soul into it for you. When you stay till the end, when you like, when you comment, it tells me this family is alive and growing. It takes only 1 second, but it means everything to me. If this message touched your heart, like this video, if you believe in real love, real stories, and real family, subscribe and become part of the StoryVerse Vault family. Now, let's unlock today's story. She parked the car near the circular driveway and stepped out into the rain. The cold soaked through her thin jacket instantly. She balanced the pizza box carefully, walking past marble statues and trimmed hedges. This place wasn't just big. It was designed to make people feel small. She reminded herself why she was here. Rent was overdue. The fridge at home was almost empty. Her son needed new shoes. She rang the doorbell and waited, listening to the distant echo inside the house. The door opened slowly, revealing warm light and polished floors. She lifted her eyes. Her breath stopped. I knew that face. I knew it the way you know a scar on your own body. Time had added lines around his eyes and silver to his hair, but it was him, the man I told myself I'd never see again. My chest tightened so fast it hurt. Memories slammed into me without warning. A college office, a desk I wasn't supposed to be sitting on, a smile that made me feel chosen and disposable at the same time. I waited for recognition, for shock, for anything. He looked at me like I was invisible, like I was just another delivery. He took the pizza box without hesitation. He thanked her politely. His voice was steady and distant. He reached into his wallet and handed her a tip that was more than she made in a night. She nodded, forcing her face to stay neutral. Her hands shook as she turned to leave. That was when she saw the photo. A framed family picture on the wall behind him. A woman in a formal dress. A boy standing between them. Her steps slowed. Her heart dropped. The boy in the photo had the same eyes as her son, the same mouth, the same serious expression. I walked back to my car like my legs didn't belong to me. I sat behind the wheel and stared at nothing. My reflection in the glass looked older than it should. My phone buzzed with a message from my son asking when I'd be home. I typed soon and erased it 3 times before sending it. My hands were still shaking. That was when my hands started shaking, I admitted to myself. Because suddenly the lie I built my life on had a face, and it lived behind a mansion gate. She drove away from the mansion in silence. The city lights blurred past her as the rain eased. Her mind replayed the past she worked so hard to bury. Years ago, she was young and desperate for opportunity. He was powerful and charming and married. She told herself it was temporary. One night became a mistake she couldn't undo. When she found out she was pregnant, panic replaced fear. An assistant called her into an office she didn't recognize. An envelope was placed on the table. She was told to disappear. I told myself I was protecting my child. I told myself he was better off without a man like that. I told myself money couldn't replace love. Those lies were easier to carry than the truth. By the time my son was born, I had already decided his father was gone. I never said the name out loud. I never wrote it down. I built our world around the absence. And for 12 years, it almost worked. At home, her son sat at the kitchen table doing homework. The apartment smelled faintly of instant noodles. He looked up when she came in, searching her face. "Did you have a long night?" he asked. She smiled and nodded. He hesitated before speaking again. "Why don't I look like other kids? Why don't I have his last name?" She froze for half a second too long. Then she lied. Again. She watched him sleep later that night. His chest rose and fell steadily. His face was calm and unaware. She sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted and wide awake. The mansion replayed in her mind. The photo, the boy, the truth pressing against her chest. She whispered a promise into the dark. I promised my son I'd never lie to him again. I didn't know I already had. Morning came without rest. She stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection while the shower ran cold. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but beneath it was fear she couldn't wash away. The mansion replayed in her mind like a paused image she couldn't close. She dressed for work mechanically, tying her apron with stiff fingers. Down the hall, her son was getting ready for school, humming softly. She watched him for a moment longer than usual. The resemblance she had trained herself not to see was suddenly everywhere. At school drop-off, her son walked beside her, backpack bouncing lightly. He talked about a science project and a math test. She nodded at the right moments, barely hearing him. Before getting out of the car, he paused. "Mom," he said carefully. She looked at him. "You won't disappear, right?" The question hit her harder than anything the night before. She swallowed and forced a smile. "Never," she said, hoping it was true. Work that evening felt heavier. Every delivery address made her flinch. Every gated home tightened her chest. When the dispatcher called out the next order, her breath caught. Same street, same private estate zone. Her hands went cold around the receipt. She considered refusing it. She needed the money too badly. She took the pizza and told herself coincidence didn't mean destiny. The mansion looked different in daylight, less threatening, still untouchable. Luxury cars lined the driveway this time. Cameras, valets. A private event was clearly underway. Music floated through the air, low and controlled. She slowed her car, intending to turn around. A security guard waved her forward before she could decide. Her pulse raced as the gate closed behind her again. She stepped out holding the pizza, feeling painfully out of place. Guests laughed nearby, dressed in tailored suits and designer dresses. No one looked at her twice. She moved quickly toward the service entrance, eyes down. That was when she felt it. Someone watching her. She looked up. He stood across the courtyard, mid-conversation, frozen. This time he recognized her. I knew the exact second it happened. The polite distance vanished from his face. His posture shifted, like a man realizing he'd missed something important. He excused himself from the group and walked toward me slowly. Every step felt loud. Every breath felt borrowed. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood there holding a pizza box like it could protect me. They stood facing each other under the open sky. For a moment, neither spoke. The noise of the party faded behind them. "You," he said quietly. She nodded once. "I didn't know," he continued, searching her face. She said nothing. "Did you ever—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Did you ever have a child?" Her heart slammed against her ribs. "No," she said too quickly. He studied her like he was trying to solve a puzzle that refused to fit. "I was told I couldn't," he said casually, like it didn't matter. "Doctors said I was infertile." The word rang in her ears. Infertile. Impossible. She felt dizzy. Her son's face flashed in her mind. My son was the proof that diagnosis was wrong, she thought, terrified by the truth. She stepped back, ending the moment. She walked away before he could say anything else. Her legs carried her past the guests, past the music, past the cameras. She didn't look back. Inside her car, she slammed the door and gasped for air. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. The lie she told 12 years ago was no longer buried. It was standing in the open. And it had just started asking questions. The next week moved slowly and too fast at the same time. She tried to return to routine, but routine no longer fit. Her mind kept drifting back to the courtyard and his question. At night, she lay awake listening to her son breathe from the next room. In the morning, she packed his lunch with shaking hands. Every normal moment felt borrowed, like something was about to interrupt it. She told herself she just needed time. Time never asked permission before running out. That afternoon, her son came home earlier than usual. School had been dismissed due to a broken water line. He dropped his backpack by the door and watched her change into her work clothes. "You're working again?" he asked. She nodded, already calculating hours in her head. He hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Can I come with you tonight?" She almost said no. Then she saw the hope in his eyes. She agreed, not knowing what she was risking. The pizza shop buzzed with noise and grease and tired laughter. Her son sat in a corner booth with a soda, watching everything carefully. He liked seeing her in motion, competent and focused. She felt safer with him nearby, even though it made no sense. The dispatcher called out orders one by one. She avoided looking at the address board. Then she saw it, the same street name. Her chest tightened. She didn't say anything. She left him in the car with strict instructions not to move. He promised, serious and obedient. The mansion was loud again, even louder than before. More guests, more cameras. She parked farther away this time, hoping to disappear. As she walked toward the house, she felt the weight of being watched again. Not by him, by fate. The door was already open. Inside, the noise swallowed her. She handed off the order quickly and turned to leave. That was when her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A message from her son. "I needed the bathroom." Her stomach dropped. She spun around too late. Her son stood near the hallway, eyes wide, taking everything in. He looked small among the wealth and strangers. She rushed toward him, panic rising. He saw the boy before she could reach him. The billionaire froze mid-step. Conversation died around him. His eyes locked onto the child with a sharp intensity that scared her. The resemblance hit instantly and violently. Same eyes, same mouth, same way of standing slightly off balance. He took one step forward, then stopped himself. The room felt too quiet, too exposed. I knew it was over the moment he looked at my son. There was no hiding it anymore. No explanation clever enough. No lie strong enough. My son looked up at him, curious instead of afraid. "Why do you look like me?" he asked simply. The question landed like a gunshot. Every sound disappeared. I felt my knees weaken. This was the truth choosing its own moment. She reached them just as the silence stretched too long. Her hand rested on her son's shoulder, grounding herself. The man's face shifted from shock to understanding. Not relief, not anger. Understanding. She couldn't hold it anymore. Her breath broke. "I didn't steal him from you," she said, voice shaking. "I was trying to protect him." The words felt small against the years between them. Guests began to notice. Whispers spread quickly. Security moved closer but hesitated. The man raised a hand, stopping them. He looked at the child again, softer now. "Does he know?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. Her son looked between them, confused. The world he knew was starting to crack, and none of them knew how to stop it. Security cleared the hallway with quiet efficiency. The music continued somewhere distant, forced and unaware. She was guided into a private sitting room with her son beside her. The billionaire followed, closing the door himself. The room was too clean, too calm for what was happening inside it. Her son sat on the edge of a leather couch, feet not touching the floor. He swung them gently, sensing tension but not fear. She stood in front of him, protective without thinking. No one spoke for several seconds. The man broke the silence first. He asked the boy his name. Her son answered clearly, proud of his voice. He asked his age. 12. He nodded slowly, like each answer confirmed something heavy. Then he looked at her, not accusing, not angry, just direct. "We need to talk," he said. She nodded, knowing there was no escape left. I felt my body go cold. This was the moment I had imagined and avoided for 12 years. Every version of it ended with me losing something. My son watched me, waiting for cues. I forced my voice to stay steady. "He doesn't know," I said again, louder this time. The man exhaled slowly. "We won't do this in front of him," he replied. That word, "won't," carried power. I hated how much it scared me. He asked an assistant to take the boy to another room. Her son looked at her uncertain. She knelt and met his eyes. "Go with her," she said softly. "I'll be right here." He hesitated, then nodded. As he walked away, she felt something tear inside her chest. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. The room felt suddenly smaller. The past had finally caught up. They sat across from each other at a low table. No lawyers, no security, just two people who shared a history neither wanted to revisit. He asked her why she never told him. She told the truth without defending it, about the assistant, the envelope, the fear, the decision to disappear. She didn't cry. She didn't dramatize it. She just laid the facts on the table like evidence. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back slowly. "I searched," he said quietly. "For years," her breath caught. "I was told you'd taken the money and left the country." She shook her head. "I stayed," she said. "I just lived smaller." That landed harder than anything else. The room held the weight of missed time. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he had everything while I counted coins for groceries. Instead, I said the one thing that mattered. "He is my son." My voice didn't shake this time. He nodded. "I know," he said, "but he's also mine." There it was, not a threat, not a promise, a fact, and facts could be dangerous. The door opened softly and the assistant returned with her son. He walked straight to her side, pressing against her leg. The billionaire stood and addressed him calmly. "You asked a good question earlier," he said. Her son tilted his head. "Sometimes people look alike because they share family," he continued. The boy processed this slowly. "So, are you family?" he asked. No one answered right away. The truth hovered, waiting. She took her son's hand. "Yes," she said finally. The word felt heavy and fragile. Her son didn't pull away. He didn't smile either. He just nodded once. The billionaire stepped back, giving space he clearly didn't want to give. "We'll take this slow," he said. She didn't respond. She had learned that slow was still movement, and movement meant change. The drive home was silent. Her son stared out the window, watching streetlights pass like questions without answers. She kept both hands on the wheel, afraid if she let go, she might shake apart. Neither of them spoke. The city felt unfamiliar, like it had shifted while they were gone. At a red light, her son finally broke the silence. "Is he going to take me?" The words landed softly and cut deeply. She pulled the car over and turned to him. I knelt in the streetlight glow and held his face in my hands. "No one is taking you," I said firmly. My voice surprised even me. "You are my son." He searched my eyes like he always did when he needed truth. "And he asked carefully. "He's someone who helped make you," I replied. "That doesn't change us." He nodded slowly. Trust settled back into his shoulders. I realized then how much power my words still had. The next morning the call came, an unfamiliar number. A calm voice introduced itself as legal counsel. She listened without interrupting, heart pounding. They spoke of tests, rights, arrangements. Her kitchen felt too small for the language they used. When the call ended, she sat at the table for a long time. This was no longer private. The empire had noticed her. And empires didn't move gently. She met him again 2 days later, not at the mansion, at a neutral office with glass walls and quiet carpets. He arrived alone. No cameras, no entourage. He looked tired for the first time. They sat across from each other with a mediator present. Terms were discussed carefully. Testing would be voluntary. Public statements controlled. He wanted involvement. She wanted protection. Neither trusted the other. I listened while they spoke about my son like he was a concept. Education, healthcare, future access. I interrupted when my chest got tight. "He's not a project," I said. Silence followed. The mediator nodded. The billionaire looked at me steadily. "I know," he said. "I missed everything." Regret finally showed through his composure. It didn't soften my fear, it sharpened it. The DNA test happened the following week. A quiet clinic, white walls, too much light. Her son squeezed her hand, nervous but brave. The nurse smiled kindly and worked quickly. It was over in minutes. Waiting was worse. She watched her son play on his tablet, unaware of how much hinged on data. The result arrived 48 hours later. Positive, undeniable. Nothing left to argue. When the confirmation reached him, he didn't celebrate. He asked to see his son, just the three of them. She agreed under conditions she set clearly. They met at a public park on a weekday afternoon. No security visible, no photographers. Her son climbed the jungle gym while the two adults stood apart. The man watched quietly, hands in pockets. That look wasn't ownership, it was loss. I expected him to cross lines, to promise too much, to confuse my child. He didn't. When my son approached him, he crouched to eye level. "Hi," he said. "Hi," my son replied. They talked about school, about a video game. Nothing heavy, nothing forced. I hated how relieved that made me, because relief meant attachment was possible, and attachment meant risk. The lawyers didn't wait. Papers arrived the following Monday, not demands, proposals, shared time, shared decisions, shared influence. She read every line twice. This wasn't a threat. It was worse. It was reasonable. That night she watched her son sleep again, the same way she always had. But now the future wasn't hers alone to guard, and that terrified her more than poverty ever did. The schedule began quietly. 1 afternoon a week, 2 hours at a time, always in public, always with boundaries written down and repeated out loud. She watched from a distance the first day, pretending to read while counting minutes. Her son sat across from the man at a small cafe table, legs swinging. They shared fries. They talked about school. Nothing dramatic happened. That unsettled her more than conflict would have. I kept waiting for the moment something went wrong, for a promise he couldn't keep, for a look that crossed a line. Instead, he showed restraint I hadn't expected. When time was up, he stood first. "I'll see you next week," he said to my son. No pressure, no guilt. My son nodded and ran back to me. I felt my shoulders loosen despite myself. Trust was forming in places I hadn't given permission. The court filings followed shortly after. Not for custody, for recognition. Her name stayed primary. Her authority stayed intact. Financial support was offered without conditions. She reviewed everything with a lawyer of her own choosing. For the first time, the power felt balanced, not equal, balanced. She signed after 3 days of consideration. It wasn't surrender, it was strategy. The media caught a scent of something unusual. Questions surfaced online. A child seen near the billionaire. Speculation bloomed without facts. He shut it down immediately. A short statement. No details, no photos, no denials. Her phone stayed quiet. That was intentional. Protection, not secrecy, was becoming the rule. I expected my son to struggle more. Instead, he adjusted in his own careful way. He asked thoughtful questions at home, not demanding answers, just building understanding, piece by piece. Does he like math? Did he ever move a lot? I answered what I could. When I didn't know, I said so. Truth felt different now, heavier but cleaner. The billionaire changed too, not suddenly, not publicly, but in small, observable ways. He stopped delegating everything involving the boy. He showed up early. He listened more than he spoke. He asked permission instead of assuming access. People around him noticed. So did she. Power was still there. It just wasn't leading anymore. I found myself watching them laugh together one afternoon. It startled me. Not because of jealousy, because of recognition. My son laughed the same way I did when I was younger. Unfiltered. Careless. I realized then that I wasn't losing him. I was sharing a truth I had carried alone. That didn't erase my fear, but it softened it. The first disagreement came quietly. A private school suggestion, better resources, longer commute. She said no without hesitation. Her son loved his school. He belonged there. The man didn't argue. He asked why. She explained. He accepted it. That moment mattered more than money ever could. That night, she sat alone after her son fell asleep. The apartment felt unchanged yet different. The fear hadn't vanished, it had matured. She understood now that control was never the goal. Stability was. Her phone buzzed with a simple message. "Thank you for trusting me." She didn't reply right away. Some things didn't need immediate answers. The future was still uncertain, but it was no longer hidden. The routine settled into something almost normal. Weeks passed without incident. Pickups were on time. Conversations stayed measured. Her son stopped asking if someone was going to take him away. That alone felt like progress. She returned to working nights, saving during the day. The pressure didn't disappear. It changed shape. Now she planned instead of survived. He asked to attend one school meeting, just to listen. No introductions, no titles. She hesitated longer than necessary. Then she agreed under clear terms. They sat in the back row during a parent conference. Her son presented a project proudly. The man clapped quietly, eyes fixed on the boy. She watched his restraint closely. It held. That mattered. I noticed the shift in myself during small moments. I stopped rehearsing arguments that never came. I slept through the night more often. Fear no longer woke me first. Caution did. That was different. Healthier. I still checked doors twice, still memorized exit routes, but I also allowed space for possibility. That surprised me. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Her lawyer, short and direct. A custody review had been requested, not a challenge, a formality. She felt the old panic flare briefly. Then it passed. She had documentation. She had stability. She had a child who spoke clearly for himself. Preparation replaced dread. That was new. The meeting was brief, professional, unemotional. The man spoke plainly about shared responsibility, not ownership, not entitlement. She spoke about continuity and emotional safety. The evaluator listened carefully. Her son was asked simple questions. He answered honestly. I live with my mom, he said, and I see him sometimes. Nothing else needed saying. I watched my son walk out of that room taller, not because he chose sides, because he was heard. That mattered more than the outcome. The man caught my eye afterward. He nodded once. No smile, just acknowledgement. Respect had replaced uncertainty. I didn't thank him. I didn't need to. The shift spoke for itself. The changes extended beyond meetings. He stopped sending gifts. No grand gestures. He showed up consistently instead. That consistency rewired expectations slowly. Her son stopped counting days between visits. He trusted they would happen. She trusted she could say no without consequence. Balance found his footing. Not perfect. Functional. I returned to something I'd postponed for years. Classes at night, one course at a time. My son helped quiz me at the kitchen table. He liked seeing me learn. It changed how he looked at limits. The man supported it quietly, paid tuition directly. No commentary, no leverage. I accepted without apology. Strength didn't require struggle anymore. The first public acknowledgement happened without warning. A photograph surfaced online. Blurry, unclear. Speculation followed quickly. Before she could react, a statement was released. Brief, controlled. This is a private family matter. No denial, no confirmation. The noise faded as quickly as it rose. Protection had become policy. And for the first time, she wasn't alone enforcing it. The first real test came quietly. A school fundraiser. Open seating. Parents everywhere. No assigned roles. She arrived early with her son, helping set up folding chairs. When she turned around, he was already there. No announcement, no hesitation, just presence. Her son noticed first and waved without thinking. That ease surprised them both. I watched him take a seat 2 rows behind us. Not beside, not in front. Behind. It was a choice, a respectful one. During the presentations, my son glanced back once. They exchanged a small smile. Nothing else. No one stared, no one whispered. For the first time, the world didn't feel like it was waiting to judge us. It just let us exist. Afterward, parents gathered in loose clusters. She spoke with teachers. He stayed near the refreshments. When her son ran over excitedly, the man listened more than he spoke. No bragging, no claiming, just attention. Other parents assumed he was a relative. No corrections were made. Labels weren't necessary. What mattered was how her son stood taller while talking. That was the evidence. The conversation that followed came later that night. Her son sat on his bed, legs crossed, thoughtful. Is he going to be around for a long time? He asked. She sat beside him, choosing her words carefully. Yes, she said, as long as that's good for you. He nodded, satisfied. No fear, no doubt. Trust had replaced uncertainty. I realized then that my role was changing, not shrinking, evolving. I wasn't guarding a secret anymore. I was guiding a truth. That required steadiness, not defense. The fear of loss loosened its grip. In its place came responsibility, shared responsibility. I didn't love that part, but I respected it. Growth rarely asks for comfort. The next meeting wasn't about schedules or school. It was about the future. College funds, medical coverage, emergency plans. They spoke like partners forced into alignment by circumstance. Not friends, not enemies. Something in between. He deferred often. She noticed every time. Control had shifted without announcement, and neither of them tried to reclaim it. I told him one thing clearly before we left. If you ever make this harder for him, I will stop this. My voice didn't shake. He didn't bristle. He nodded once. You won't have to, he said. It wasn't a promise. It was a boundary acknowledged. That mattered more than words wrapped in reassurance. Respect had become the currency between us. Time passed without crisis. That felt strange at first. Then it felt earned. Her son adjusted fully. Grades stayed strong. Laughter returned easily. The man became a stable presence, not a looming one. She allowed herself moments of quiet pride, not for how things turned out, but for how she handled them. Survival had given way to authorship. One evening, as she studied at the table, her son looked up suddenly. Mom, he said, if you hadn't delivered that pizza. She paused, pen hovering. I know, she replied. The thought didn't scare her anymore. Some doors change everything when they open, not because of what's behind them, but because of who you become after walking through. The change announced itself in small ways. Her son stopped asking where he belonged. He started talking about where he was going. High school choices replaced anxious questions. She listened, offered guidance, kept her voice steady. The man stayed consistent, never crowding decisions. Presence without pressure became the rule. The past loosened its hold as plans took shape. The future began to feel negotiable instead of threatening. I noticed my own breathing slow during ordinary moments. Standing in line, walking home, studying late. I wasn't bracing for impact anymore. That absence felt unfamiliar. Peace can feel like silence after noise. I learned to trust it cautiously, not blindly, carefully, because care had kept us intact this long. The first overnight visit came with a checklist. Her son packed methodically. She double-checked medications and numbers. The man waited by the car, hands visible, respectful. Goodbyes were brief by design. No drama, no promises. Her son hugged her and climbed in. She stood watching the car leave, heart steady. That surprised her most. I didn't sleep much that night, not from fear, from awareness. The apartment felt quieter than it had in years. I used the time well, studied, organized, prepared meals for the week. I reminded myself that trust is built by allowing space to hold. Morning arrived without incident. That counted as success. He returned her son on time the next day. No gifts, no grand stories. Just a tired smile and sunburned cheeks. They'd gone hiking, shared sandwiches, talked about constellations. Her son spoke animatedly, then stopped himself. He looked to her first. She nodded. Permission granted. I realized then that my approval still mattered, not because I demanded it, because I earned it through consistency. That was the balance I fought for. Shared truth without shared control. The man noticed the exchange and stepped back again. He was learning the same lesson. Authority grows best when it isn't seized. It's offered. The call came from her lawyer with final confirmations. No pending disputes, no upcoming hearings. Everything documented and agreed. She thanked him and ended the call. The silence afterward felt earned. She poured coffee and sat by the window. Life wasn't perfect. It was stable. Stability had become the victory condition. I met him once more that week, not for planning, not for negotiation, for acknowledgement. We stood outside the school as parents filtered past. I know this wasn't fair to you, he said. I considered that carefully. It wasn't, I replied. He nodded. That was enough. No absolution requested, none given. Her son joined them, backpack slung high. He smiled easily at both. Then he walked between them toward the gate. Not pulled, not guided, choosing his own pace. She followed, steady. The man matched from the other side. 3 people moving forward without forcing alignment. That was the shape of their family now. functional, honest, unfinished in the best way. The weeks that followed didn't bring surprises. They brought rhythm, morning routines settled, pickups rotated smoothly. Her son adapted without hesitation, as if waiting for adults to catch up. She watched him move through his days with confidence, not split, not confused, just supported. That told her everything she needed to know. I stopped measuring time by fear. I measured it by progress. Classes completed, savings growing, sleep coming easier. I was no longer surviving between paychecks. I was building something, slowly, deliberately. The lie that once shaped my life had collapsed. What replaced it was harder and far more solid. The man remained consistent. No public displays, no sudden claims. He attended quietly when invited. He stepped back when not. Her son trusted that pattern. So did she. Trust stopped being a risk and became a reference point. They weren't fixing the past. They were managing the present. That was enough. I caught myself laughing one afternoon, not nervously, not out of relief, just laughing. It startled me because it felt earned. I hadn't lost myself protecting my child. I had sharpened myself. Strength hadn't disappeared into sacrifice. It had been refined by it. That realization stayed with me. The final paperwork arrived without ceremony. No signatures under pressure, no deadlines breathing down her neck. She read everything once, then again, then filed it away. The legal chapter closed quietly, not with celebration, with confidence. She trusted the structure now, because she had helped shape it. I thought back to the rain that night, the wipers, the gate, the door opening. I understood now that it hadn't ruined my life. It had interrupted a fragile story I was telling myself. The truth didn't arrive gently, but it arrived honestly. And honesty, once faced, doesn't need defending. It just needs living. Her son stood between two worlds without being pulled apart. That was the real success. He wasn't owned. He wasn't negotiated. He was raised. With clarity, with boundaries, with adults who learned when to step forward and when to step back. She watched him walk ahead one afternoon and felt steady, not afraid of what followed, ready for it. I didn't become brave overnight. I became consistent. I chose truth even when it threatened comfort. I chose my child even when the world offered alternatives. That choice carried us through. Every step since then has been built on it. I no longer wonder what would have happened if I turned back. Some doors are meant to be opened once and never revisited. She closed the apartment door gently behind them at the end of the day. Dinner waited on the stove, homework on the table, life imperfect and intact. The past no longer chased her. It walked beside her, acknowledged and quiet. Sometimes the door you're afraid to knock on already knows your name, and when it opens, it doesn't take from you. It returns what was always yours. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe to stay part of this family, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay connected to StoryVerse Vault, where real stories live.